Hey guys, welcome to Zero to Recorder. In this video, we are going to talk about 9 essential React hooks every developer should know for the React. So first, hooks comes in the picture called use state. Okay, before moving to the what is hooks. So hooks, what is hooks? The React hooks. If I go on this post, the React hooks are a function that allow us to hook to the state and change the state. Okay, so we can see also here like React hooks were introduced in 16.8 uh, and quickly become essential for the React developer since they made creating maintainable and reusable component much more straightforward. So first hooks comes in the picture is called use state. So like whenever you learn React, so you must have learned use state hook. Use state hook is a hook that that takes initial like that takes a variable called use count and like another variable like dispatch function called set count. Okay, and we have to define the initial value. So if you read about the use state hook is the most basic hook in the React being used every time. As you probably already know, it adds a state to your functional component. The way it's work, return a array with two elements. The first element will be current state, so it will take a current state, and it will take a function that update the state. Okay, so we define current state and function that will update the state. So it's so simple, like whenever you want to change like on click we have to increment the counter, then set count is equal to count plus one. And one more thing, like set count has the previous value of the count, so it will also track the previous state of that state. Okay, the next one comes in the use feature in the comes is called use effect. The use effect is also like one of the most important hook. So use effect hooks when component render on the like component when component mount. Okay, so it will take like use effect is a function that takes another function that takes a callback function, and on the callback function we have to call a function like API call or something whatever, and it takes a dependency array. If you don't pass dependency array, so whenever the component got re-rendered, so it will run this function again. So that's why we have to pass a dependency array. And if you pass any element on the dependency array like count, so it will render whenever the countable is changed. Okay, then the next hooks come in the picture called use context hooks. The use context hooks comes from the create context. So uh, if you want to save some state through the whole application, so we have to use uh, we have to use a context API. So I hope you have learned what is context API. The context API is just a one like Redux. It will throw out the whole application. So I create a theme context, is in create context and pass the value as a light. Okay, now I have to read the value of theme. So const theme is equal to use context theme. So it will it will give the theme value. The next hook called a use reducer hook. The use reducer hooks is also simple, straightforward. It takes the reducer and the initial state. So and it will return state and dispatch. Okay. So let's see what is initial state. So I define initial state of count is equal to 0, and on the reducer is take state like whatever the state and action. So if action dot type is equal to increment, then what we have to do? We have to do the count is equal to state dot count plus one. Okay, so now in the use reducer hook we have to pass the reducer and initial state. So it has a state and dispatch. Okay, so state basically what does do, state gives like return this state like whatever the we have defined, state dot count is equal to 0. Okay, and there is a call on click type dispatch type increment. If we are dispatching an action called type increment, this goes on the increment like here, and we check out if action dot type is equal to increment, then count state dot count plus one. This is how use reducer works. Another function is called use callback hook. To use callback hook is used to return a memoized callback function that only changes when of the dependency change. Okay, obviously you don't use this when you have a component have a happy function, so you don't want to return it every render the component when it's okay. So basically use callback hook is of it takes a function and it will only run whenever the something like a dependency element change. Okay, suppose if we have we effect we only use when you have a a multiple component on our app, so there's called multiple redundants. So that's why we don't want to make a redundant every time. That's why we use a use callback hook that takes a function and dependency array. It will only run whenever the dependency array item will be changed. Okay. The next hook called use memo hook. The use memo hook is used to return a memoized value. That only change when the one of the dependency change. Okay. So use memo, like use, what is the difference between use callback and use memo? The use callback like takes return a function, but use memo return a value. Okay. So use memo, like it will only run this function whenever the data will be changed. So that's why we are using, because we don't want to make in like a rendering, like large rendering. That's why you are using use memo. So use memo, it will return the sorted data whenever the data will be changed. And the next hook called the use ref hook. The use ref hook help us put the reference of the element. Okay. So we have a call ref, like we have an input box and we want the ref, like where is the location of the input. So we use input ref. The const input ref is equal to use ref. Initially we have defined null, but on this ref is equal to input ref. So the input ref gives the location of this input. Okay. So const handle click, whenever we click on handle click input ref dot current, so it will gives the like all the state, like reference of this input ref. That's why you use ref. And the last hook called use imperative handle. The use imperative handle hook is less known but is useful. It is used to customize the instance value for a forward ref component. Okay. If you don't know what is forward ref, it's another thing to learn, but it cannot explain this article. Okay. So we have a call text input and we have a forward ref, and it's text of props ref. Const input ref is equal to react.use ref. We have defined a ref and use imperative handle. Whenever on the focus, we have a call input ref.current.focus. Okay. And the last hook called use debug value. So use debug value will be help us to debug the state. Like if count is greater than 0, it will return count is high, else count it low. That's all.